Sie hören Sport und Musik.
Das Spiel ist aus! Deutschland ist Weltmeister!
In a world where fans fight over whether to call it football, or soccer, two German men defy the odds and call it Fußball. Bringing you inside the German-American football experience. And now, here are your hosts, the Schnitzel Boys.
Yeah, baby!
Oh!
Hey,
Was a little quick. Was a little quick on the draw there.
yeah. That was pretty sweet, but here are your boys, the Schnitzel Boys. And we're here ready to talk German-American soccer experience. Whatever the hell that is.
What it is?
that?
Well, I'll explain.
Because I've been doing this for 48 episodes. I still don't know.
You don't know what the German-American football experience is? It's an in between. It's a state of in between.
You know what it is? It is the love of soccer from a place where soccer is older and more established, but not from the usual mainstream place of where soccer is older and more established. I would give that more to the English game or the Mexican game as being a little bit more like it's more common to run into an American soccer fan who's also from Mexico or a Mexican fan, or an American soccer fan who's really into the English Premier League. That's what you run into, but not us, baby.
We try to embody the best of both worlds. The knowledge and sophistication of the old world, but also the openness and breadth of diversity of the new world.
That's such a great way to put it. We are the breadth of diversity, you and I. Two straight white dudes that love sports.
That's right.
But the sports we love isn't football, although football is fine.
It's Fußball.
It's Fußball or football or footy. You know, we like this. We like the champagne of sports.
The champagne of sports. Very
although,
nice.
although, if you listen
MLS,
to one
MLS is the champagne of sports.
Well, I remember an old MLS commercial from like 1996 or 97 on ESPN back when they were starting. And it was a bunch of footage of like bloody Italian soccer players, and they played it to opera music, and it cut to black letters being like the sophisticated sport or whatever, and it would cut out to players running around, and it was set to opera, and that was very much their idea. It was like soccer is the slower, more sophisticated sport, or like this great and your Cosmos documentary, Once in a Lifetime. The guy described. It was a lady, a journalist who was getting into soccer in the 70s, described it like a play, right? You got act one, so they have an act two, and I'm just like, whatever you need, man. Like that's part of their marketing. I don't necessarily need to think of it that way.
I agree with that. I mean, I in the sense that, you know, it demands your full attention in a way. It's like, you know, when you have like in a baseball game in the US, it's 3 hours, there's lots of breaks, you kind of talk about anything. You're hanging out, you're talking about, you know, you're still dating that girl from accounting, whatever, like that kind of thing. I don't talk that way during a soccer game. No. I'll do that at halftime or before. It's like 45 minutes. You don't need to eat, you don't need to, you know, talk about the weather or politics or whatever. That's the game. The game's going on. I don't think you should be doing the wave unless you're like winning 5-0.
True. I mean, you don't need to eat, but I choose to anyway. You're allowed to eat if you want to. I eat. Or drink.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
But very much they're very quick if you're into it. Depending on, especially some games will be very quick.
Yeah, it goes.
Some games can be slow.
It goes. It's not always, but yeah, it's not like. I mean, there's just not the same interruptions. Like if you go to an NBA game live and you don't see it's just a lot of starting and stopping. And they do stuff. They do stuff. There's you know, t-shirt cannons and dancers and you know, like little contests where somebody has to shoot it from mid-court blindfolded and he gets $1 million if he makes it, like that kind of thing. But yeah, I think that's just a different experience with the foosball. You just watch it, and I mean, when you go to we've talked about this before. When you go to a European stadium, it's pretty no frills. There's beer and a sausage, and that's it, because you don't need a meal. You don't need to eat sushi and 18 different kinds of burgers. Like, it's short.
It's really just beer. I mean, there's stuff.
You can go, well, drinking, I guess, is definitely, especially when it comes to Germany, drinking beer is very much part of the experience. Yeah.
Right. There's burgers, there's pretzels, there's sausages. It's not terrible. But really, it's beer. It's like, get your beer flowing. As I discussed with the German engineering, they have these beer cups where you can stack by 4 at a time.
It's a constant quest for people to be able to get more beer into people in the limited time allotted. Yeah.
When I was in Mexico, though, they took the cake and food options. I mean, you didn't have to go. You just sat in your chair, and it was vendor upon vendor upon vendor offering.
That's amazing.
Things. Half the stuff I've never even seen before. It was very cool. But, God, I have so many things. We're going into tangents. I'm just like, soccer has been described. I forgot who it was. Maybe it was the great Tim Vickery, I think. Described soccer to like a non-soccer fan as like football, foosball is a game of creation. They're trying to create at each other, trying to figure it out. And the goal is this beautiful celebration. You only have a couple, so they mean a lot. Yeah. Whereas American sports aren't built that way. American sports are built for quantity. It's like points. Run,
yeah, and that's why for a lot of people it doesn't stick necessarily. Right. Some of the like when I was in Orlando a few weeks ago, I was sort of surprised how few people were there, because that was a team, in the beginning they would sell out every week, but I think it has to do with what you're talking about. It doesn't have the same, it's sort of, long term soccer sort of trends towards drudgery, like in the macro and the micro sense of it. In the scheme of things, most efforts are in vain in soccer. Most stuff doesn't pan out. Most attacks, most things sort of get don't work, and very rarely does something really work, and that's why it's so worthy of celebration. And even in the long term, there's like it's a lot of repetition. There's a lot of there's a lot of the same, and so it's not like Magnolia cupcakes or whatever, or heroin, like that. Once you try it, you get hooked. It's like some people, tension, and then
release. Oh, goal! That's what they yell, goal. But that's why I think we live in this beautiful era of the world being so small, and like I would have never, like, for years everyone's like, oh, soccer's not going to work because American sports are different, and they're right. American soccer and women's soccer in that regard as well, men's and women's, I should say, are sort of in their own category. They are sports, but they're like part of the other sports. Mm-hmm. There aren't main American sports that SportsCenter comments on. They there's like a system that they've built with seasons, with the colleges. Just there's an American sports system, and soccer is not part of it. But despite years of them offering that as an excuse to why they're failing, soccer spent many years, MLS and the English Premier League and so forth, have spent the last 25 years hammering themselves in and carving their own path to be their own thing. Because in America, you're allowed to be your own thing. You don't have to be part of another system. So that's what happened with soccer. Like 20 years ago, if you told me that American soccer would have sold out stadiums and big world stars, like I would have told you like nonsense. But it happened, and it is happening, and it's keep happening. It's going to get better and better and better. So they carved themselves into something, and then they did it. They did it despite, which goes back to my original point, despite what you might hear from one Fiorentino Perez. He came out in a big conference.
What did he say?
And he said that soccer is dying. It is yesterday's news compared to all the great American franchises. I think Forbes released some list where like the 13 most valuable sporting franchises were American teams, not MLS Like it was like the Yankees, the Pats, that kind of stuff. And then Real Madrid or whatever was like 13th or 14th or something, which is very suspect because where does Forbes get their information from? It's some intern writing up some stuff, but or not. But B, the reality is so he's just using it as a platform to keep pushing the Super League thing, and he wants to essentially break soccer away from its old conventions and create this Super League full of steroids and the same stuff he's always been touting. I'm very suspect of all that. I think football is alive and well and thriving and still by far the world's most popular sport. I think the fact that certain American franchises make a lot of money is great, but American sports live in a microcosm. Outside the United States, who gives a crap about American sports?
Well, that has changed, though, also over the last 20 years. Definitely around the world, the NBA and the NFL and even baseball now. Like my brother's into baseball. He likes to watch.
Into baseball? Why?
Yeah.
How'd that happen?
I don't know. I don't know, a few years ago, he decided that it was interesting. I mean, I don't know how it started exactly. I'd have to ask him. He came here a couple of times. We saw one very good Yankee game live, and he, especially in the playoffs, he gets excited. Excited about it.
I think that's great, but that's also very niche. I mean, Sports Show isn't talking about the World Series, are they?
I haven't watched Sports Show in like 40 years.
maybe they are. I watched Sports Show. I watched it a little bit over the weekend again. To my nefarious view. Well, anyway, all I'm saying is that there's a lot of noise, and it is worth discussing on multiple levels. Firstly, soccer might be getting broken because the haves are getting way too heavy and the knots are getting way too naughty. We see what happened in France and in Germany and what did happen in Italy, and it's happening in England, despite them pretending like it doesn't. Liverpool's having a bad season. If Liverpool's gone, then that's the end of it. Man City's the only team in England. Liverpool's the only team that keeps them honest. So,
whoa! What about Arsenal?
They're hanging out. They're going to get destroyed by Man City. Arsenal's
in first.
I know, but
you don't believe in Mikel Arteta and.
I don't know. It depends. What do you think about Union Berlin being in first in the Bundesliga?
Wow, that is an incredible comparison. So Arsenal are like Arsenal. I don't think Arsenal fans would agree with you that they're like Union Berlin and they invariably are going to falter.
No, that's true.
I think they feel like they're in it.
All right, Bjorn, you have $500. Who do you put on winning this season, Arsenal or Man City?
Well. It's
Man City. Why would you?
I will put. But Arsenal's chances are much bigger than Union Berlin's. I will say that.
Well, I'm talking about in England. Although we should be talking too much England because this is not an English podcast.
Because that's not part of the German American football experience.
Well, Erling Haaland was at Dortmund, and then what I will say is when the English fans or whoever, not too many, when some people look down on Germany, they're like, well, the English game is faster, more blah, 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 blah. It's like, well, I don't know. Robert Lewandowski and Erling Haaland scored a lot of goals in Germany, and they're scoring the exact amount of goals in England and Spain.
Erling Haaland had a hat trick this weekend.
Three hat tricks in 8 games or something, right? No one. The next nearest person to do that was Michael Owen, and he took him 48 games. So for Erling Haaland to walk into Man City in the English Premier League right from Dortmund, that shows you something about the quality of the Bundesliga. It's not that different, honestly, despite what some people might tell you. But anyway, let's speak of the Bundesliga. Let's go into. I mean, I could talk. So I almost want to bring up the fact. I was listening to the Grant Wall podcast. And you know how Todd Bowley and the American billionaires and Glazers get attacked all the time for their ideas and blah, 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 blah. It's like, what about Fiorentino Perez? He's actually doing the things you fear the Americans are doing. Like your people with the All-Star game and blah, blah, blah. People are just like, oh, no, the Americans, they're so bad. And then meanwhile, Fiorentino Perez is like, screw the World Cup, screw our leagues. He announced a Super League a year ago. He said it was happening, and then followed through with it. And he's still talking about it. You know what I mean? Like, for crying out loud, when you're looking at a quiet guy in the corner, don't ignore the yelling guy to the left of you.
But he's sort of beyond credibility, right? No one takes him seriously. He's already tried and failed with this nonsense.
Yeah, but why is the media attacking American billionaires over what they think they're about to do and completely ignoring the other billionaires that are currently doing the things that they're doing?
Well, because the American billionaires have actual influence in the English game, whereas Florentino Perez does not.
Yeah, well, I'm talking about the game overall. But anyway, that's just my little soapbox. The whole, like...
All right.
I think Americans get...
Don't let me talk you down from your soapbox.
Well, what I'm saying is Americans... Being an American soccer fan is tough. Because if you're an American, people don't take you seriously overseas. And if you're an American, people don't take you seriously in this country either. It's like you get the short stick both sides.
Right. That's why people have become bitter and insufferable.
That's why it was just like me. And that's why I have to fight for my Americans, okay? Fight for the Americans.
just like you.
You shouldn't argue. Being an American shouldn't be something that affects how you feel about someone. I think that's all I think. You talk to an owner about how he actually does. Let an American coach a team. Anyway, I don't. That's neither here nor there.
You're arguing for more nuance in the English
I'm just
media?
arguing for. I'm just saying when what's his face when Rio Ferdinand says All-Star game would be a good idea, it was fine. Then when Bowley said it for business reasons, they ripped him apart. Be like, you stupid American. We would never say something like that. It's like, well, what did Rio Ferdinand say 10 years ago, morons? It's like also, oh my God, All-Star League and what's up with this guy is the worst. Meanwhile, Florentino Perez, it's like, I'm going to steal the best English teams and take them away from the Premier League. And no one bats an eye. Anyway, that's probably going to happen. So,
that's okay. Well, that's not really true. It's not like no one bats an eye. The Super League was going, and then people revolted and shut it down.
Yeah, but that chapter's not done. And if Manchester City wins a 6 out of, I think the last 6 seasons, this would be their 5th out of 6. I think, yeah. Then English soccer is as broken as everything else. So, what does that mean?
I guess we're all Arsenal fans then.
Just like we're all Dortmund fans.
Like we're all Dortmund will let us down. Anyway, yeah.
Heading into, speaking of the Bundesliga and soccer, heading into the Bundesliga was a pretty fun weekend overall. Some disappointments, but some fun games. I'll start with the
disappointments.
Well,
like Dortmund. Speaking of Dortmund, disappointing.
They went to Cologne, right? Or they host Cologne? It was Dortmund.
No,
Cologne.
it was on the road in Cologne.
Away
in Cologne. In Cologne.
And Cologne. Dortmund
had a lead at halftime. Yep.
But the game ended 3-2. They got a last-minute winner, and Cologne beat Dortmund 3-2. So good on Cologne, and Dortmund's inconsistent, unconvincing season trods on with, frankly, Edin Terzic, who's just not an impressive coach, man. And we learned this during his last stint. I think he's just a dude who stands there and tries to motivate them, but he just doesn't have any great master plan for them. I think they put in a yes man to be coach, and he's just doing as he's told. And Dortmund are dropping points again. They're 4th place, I believe, behind Bayern München. They have the big Der Klassiker this weekend, so that's something to look forward to. Mm-hmm. But Dortmund are going to beat them 6-0. They're going to rip them apart. Excuse me, Bayern München are going to beat Dortmund 6-0. They're going to rip them apart. Mm-hmm. Right? That's what I see on paper.
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, I agree with you. They're sort of frustrating to watch. Last season, they were really unbalanced. They were all offense, and now they don't seem particularly good at anything. And a
lot of heat's being given to Anthony Modeste, but Anthony Modeste was a last-minute panic signing. He's 34. He's a great club player for Cologne. Speaking of Cologne. And he was just a great club legend, but if you buy a guy last minute, a 34-year-old French dude who's never played for the French national team, and you thrust him in Germany's second biggest club and say, our season to beat 10-year-in-a-row winner at Bayern rests on your shoulders. It's a lot of that's a lot of pressure. And also, if you're a club like Borussia Dortmund, what kind of business is that? What is that? Like, what kind of sport directing is that? It's very, very haphazard and sloppy. It's the kind of thing you see from a mid-level club, not a club like Borussia Dortmund.
Well, I mean, in their defense, it was just a sort of they didn't have a lot of time to, this Sebastian Haller situation was unexpected. They had somebody that they liked, and
true, but what I will say is, like, they should have found a different replacement. They should have splashed cash on Nkunku or something. You know what I'm saying? Or how about this, Nicholas Füllkrug? How about that? They should have splashed their cash on someone else. I love Anthony Modeste. But Anthony Modeste is built to be a club player. He's a come off the bench, score a goal when the pressure's off type player. Borussia Dortmund's like, let's have him be our star real quick at 34. It's too old. And now they're paying for it. And I just think if Borussia Dortmund, with their whole executive staff, they should have done a little bit of a better business. Now, I'm still rooting for Modeste. I think Modeste is great. But I think Modeste is a supporting cast player. He's a come off the bench star. You can't lean a whole team around him. So again, Dortmund continue to, be unconvincing. I would love if Gio Reyna got healthy overnight and became a key figure because the dude's got talent. But as always with Dortmund, they're a club in flux. Borussia Dortmund, club in flux. So I don't know. Good on Cologne, but come on, Dortmund, do better.
Yeah, they were got passed by Bayern in the table. They're down to fourth. Bayern, very convincing win against Leverkusen.
Yes, Jamil Musiala crushing it.
That kid's the real deal. He's good.
Well, yeah. Again, Bayern München are amazing. They sign excellent world-class stars like Sadio Mane. Plus, they have a second-to-none youth academy, and they bring in all these great youth stars to hang out with them. And so, like, Bayern München's good to go. They always got team, and they've always got depth. They've always got players. So, Bayer Leverkusen couldn't offer much, and Bayer Leverkusen, despite having a lot of promise at the beginning of the season, has had a very disappointing season. They have 5 points in 8 match days in Bundesliga. And their Sportdirektor, Gerardo, what's his name? Gerardo Faro, I think his name was. Fernando, let me look him up. Fernando Caro is his name, I think. The Bayer Leverkusen Sportdirektor came on German media, and they've been asking him, what's up? And pretty much he's saying, it's a results-based business, and we got off on the wrong foot, and we still believe in our coach, but if he doesn't turn things around soon, we're going to have to make a change. And I believe that was very much in reference to the fact that if they don't win against Schalke this weekend,
beat Schalke or go,
Gerardo Zowani will be fired. The Swiss Wunder coach who did such a great job with them last year. Just like Domenico Tedesco, after a season, you just fall hard, don't you? So I believe watch the Bayer Leverkusen Schalke game this weekend. The fate of Bayer Leverkusen's coach depends on it. And honestly, I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, he either lost the locker room or something. So either that or this weekend is the beginning of a great run and revival for Bayer Leverkusen. It's one or the other. They're either they have to make a change or it's been fixed, and Bayer Leverkusen are finally going to go back to their full promise the way they've been.
Well, Schalke is not doing so great either. So even if they beat them, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. Schalke lost at home to Augsburg. And I don't know. I don't know how. I mean, I think that's probably the minimum requirement. If he does not win at home against Schalke, then he's probably gonna be out.
They got to make a change. To compare how bad Bayer Leverkusen have been this year, and Doppelpass on the German media show, they're like, this club has let in more goals than only one other club has let in more. It's so bad. And then other club is
Bochum.
VfL Bochum.
New
They gave us a
coach.
comparison. They're like, VfL Bochum's the only club to let in more goals. As how pathetic is Bayer Leverkusen?
Well, it is pretty. I mean, speaking of Bochum, it's pretty. New coach, Thomas Letsch. New coach, right? Same result. Never. I mean, like 20 minutes in, this thing was already over. I think. I mean, I wish I could spread some optimism here, but I think that squad is just not. It's just not good enough, and I think they're gonna have a season like Fürth, like Greuther Fürth did last year. I don't think there's gonna be much. I mean, we're 8 games in. We're basically a quarter of the season. One point out of 8 games. So
it's pretty bad. It's DC United bad. Well,
it's not gonna happen. Yeah,
it's not good for the Bundesliga if a club's just like, screw it. You know what I mean? Like, what'd they do? There needs to be more of an inquest. It's like, go compete, man. If I'm the Bundesliga, I'll be like, screw you guys. It's like, you guys are just gonna ride the rails and just get beaten all season long. We need more competitiveness on the bottom end of the table too. So I mean, they're pretty much guaranteed.
What are they gonna?
If I'm the Bundesliga CEO, I'm like,
you're going to
put more effort into.
You're gonna send them some pool players. Like, what are you?
Yeah, for the Bundesliga pool. I'm gonna send them emergency funds.
We're gonna send.
That might be interesting.
If you don't win, we're gonna send Miroslav Klose to play.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That would be a fun trigger by the hips to say so. If there's an absolute trap donkey team, they get
Max Kruse will send you players. We have these pool players that are good but unpopular as threats. If you're not going to get any better, we're going to send you Max Kruse, and you got to start him every game.
There's like a batch of players that get forced to play for the second half of the season. That's Bundesliga's salary cap. That's
we'll assign you the pool players.
Whatever. To keep more competitive, it is what it is. But my dad is a Bochum fan through and through, born and raised, and he stood up and walked out in the middle of the game, went outside. He's like, I've had enough. It's just like, he doesn't know what's going on. He doesn't want to watch it anymore. Which I'm sure is the same sentiment of many fans this season.
I mean, it's just not going to be good.
However, the other more positive note, Eintracht Frankfurt for the Union Berlin, I believe it was on Friday. Or maybe it was Saturday. I don't remember, but it was a great
Saturday. Game. A very sort of lackluster effort from Union. No, wouldn't you say?
Well, yeah, Eintracht Frankfurt bossed the game from minute one.
Yeah, Götze had a good game,
and a super game from their Norwegian player. I forgot what's his name. Oh God, I should look this up. He scored the second goal, and he was like bossing around. He was like a little mini Diego Maradona.
Who are you talking about? Lindström?
Yes, Lindström. That dude was crushing it. He had such a great game. And the other thing about this was the team. Hold on, Lindström. Jesper Lindström, the Danish guy. 22. He just bossed that game. He had such a great game. And he scored quite a great goal or set up that game. He was just really, really good. And what I like about this was the battle of my two favorite coaches. I think the two best Bundesliga coaches right now are Oliver Glasner and Urs Fischer. I think Oliver Glasner is a magic man. I think he did great with Wolfsburg. And that was with Eintracht Frankfurt. I think doing really well with them. And Urs Fischer, who just signed the contract extension with Union Berlin, who's done wonders for Union Berlin. So two of the probably best Bundesliga managers right now. There was a conversation after the game between the two of them, and like the commentator said, he's like, I'm sure they're hard to understand, as one is very Swiss, the other is very Austrian. So I'm sure they were speaking German. It was a German I probably wouldn't understand.
Gerhard Struber-esque.
Very Gerhard Struber-esque.
Well, and all American eyes anyway, were on Jordan, Pefok, Sibachu, Alexander Arnold, Loftus-Cheek, who was after that Saudi Arabia game that we're going to only talk about a little bit, right? The U.S. Another very toothless showing by the U.S. men's national team. All eyes were on Jordan Pefok, and he did not have a good game, but it's just one. He's been great.
Yeah, he's there. I mean, kind of like the U.S., kind of like Saudi Arabia. If the two forwards aren't getting service, Union Berlin, they were just on their back foot the whole time. Eintracht Frankfurt were just bossing
Frankfurt
them.
was dominant.
They were
but
sideswiped.
Union still in first for at least one more week.
Yeah, for the points. Next week, after Bayern München destroys Dortmund 6-0.
Okay, yeah, can't really I cannot offer a different perspective. Union Berlin is on the road at Stuttgart, so we'll see if they can get out of that.
Well, they're probably expected to win that one, because that's another thing about the Bundesliga is our friend Pellegrino Matarazzo, the great German-American who embodies the German-American soccer experience. His team Stuttgart played Wolfsburg. His team Stuttgart played Wolfsburg last week, and it was a tight 2-2 game until the very end when Wolfsburg got their winner. And many, many Stuttgart games are left with Stuttgart having a great game, really playing them man-to-man, but they're just dropping points, all these unnecessary points. It's just like they could play for 89 minutes, but then that last minute comes around, and then they just drop it. So there's a little bit of pressure on Pellegrino Matarazzo these days. Stuttgart does sit in a relegation spot.
He's down there, yeah. I mean, Bochum, I think, like I said, is probably going to take up one spot, and Leverkusen is in 17th. Who knows what's going to happen with them? You would expect them to.
They demand a turnaround, right?
To at some point maybe turn it around. So Stuttgart and Schalke are right in there, and Hertha Berlin. Those are probably the teams. I thought before the season that Augsburg were candidates, but they're doing very well.
They got rid of Pepe, and all these doors opened. And
once they sent Pepe to Holland, everything just fell into place for them.
And Pepe having a great time in Holland because they have no defenders there. So
they have no defenders, and man, you got the takes. You got the takes tonight.
I'm just regurgitating.
English soccer is dying. There's no defense in Holland.
It's the happy hour, the Schnitzel Boys happy hour.
Americans shouldn't be. Well, anyway, okay. You're a take machine tonight.
I
love it.
Augsburg doing well.
Augsburg doing very well, ahead of Leipzig still by 1 point.
What I will say is Marco Rosa and Leipzig, I'm very excited about what's going on over there with Nkunku and as far as the other and Timo Werner, as far as the other teams in the league that could really challenge Bayern München, RB Leipzig I think comes in first place. They teeter-totter in the beginning, but I'm hoping they turn around. I'm hoping they come and swing for the rest of the season.
I agree with you. I think that the Marco Rose is a great hire for them. I think, I think that team is pretty stacked with talent. And I agree with you. I think if I had to bet on a challenger, I would pick them as well.
Now they're already talking about selling Nkunku to Chelsea. As my criticism before has lied, where sometimes it seems that German clubs are more excited about selling talent than actually making a championship-winning team. So I don't love hearing that, but it seems that RB Leipzig is, like I said, with Marco Rose, who's a great coach, who was a terrible dismissal by Dortmund. And I think that was very telling of stuff that's going on at Dortmund, firing Marco Rose and replacing him with Edin Terzic. I think it's very telling on the Watzke show over at Dortmund.
The Watzke show. I think so. Similarly in Bochum, similarly behind the scenes problems that are spilling over. What about Werder Bremen, though? You want to talk about your guy?
Yeah, well, I want to talk about Werder Bremen beating Borussia Mönchengladbach 5-1.
Yeah.
It destroyed them over the weekend.
Yeah. Newly promoted.
Bouncing up. Right? We had Schalke and Werder Bremen being demoted, not figuring it out. And Schalke coming up, and they're, time will tell if they can stay in the top flight. They're definitely having a better season this year than 2 seasons ago. But Werder Bremen came up swinging. And they're like, we are a Bundesliga team, and we're staying in the Bundesliga. Yeah. So good for them. And one of their key players is a German forward from Bremen, who comes from Bremen. His Ausbildung was in Bremen. And he left Bremen to play for a couple of clubs, but during his prime, made his way back to Bremen. Bremen boy Niklas Füllkrug. He has been scoring up a storm. He had a brace against Gladbach over the weekend. He scored a goal for them the last weekend. He is the highest and best performing German goal scorer in the Bundesliga this season, at least. And he played for the German youth squads back in the day, but he's never played for the senior. He doesn't have any senior caps.
And he's 29, you said, right?
He's 29.
He's not a young man.
I mean, he's a young, in his prime.
He's a young man compared to us, but he's not a young man by soccer player standards. Yeah.
But at 29, that is your prime sort of. That's like the late 20s, very early 30s is sort of like when you should be at your best. That's when your body is still good and your brain is at its best. Sort of in that sweet spot.
It's rare. It's rare, I would say, in Germany for players to get their first call-ups that late. Usually it's sort of, they have some kind of pedigree from youth national teams and get there a little younger. But much like the U.S. men's national team, we face a little bit of a vacuum in the number 9 position. There is no natural, there's Timo Werner, and he, had a
more of a winger, right?
Is really a winger at heart, and also not really an ice cold finisher.
No,
to put it mildly. And
Kai Havertz is a false 9. He's scoring goals, but he's not really a number 9.
Yeah, he's now even in Chelsea now with the arrival of Aubameyang. He's moving to the outside, and that's probably where he's more comfortable. So there would be room for somebody who's a real knipser.
Right.
And
the only number 9 the German national team has is Lucas Nemeka. And when have you heard from him?
Yeah, and he is very much comes off the bench, if at all.
Yeah, so Germany has a number 9.
And Serge Gnabry, I guess, is a little bit also more centrally. He's not really in great form. Currently, Leroy Sané has eclipsed him at Bayern for the time being, and I guess also on the national team. And so,
it's a lot of winners.
there would be an opening. There's a lot of winners and a lot of false 9.
Yeah.
Often, the term false 9 is often employed for somebody who's playing the 9 but is not that good at it. Like, so.
Yeah.
I
false
think
9 is the answer to not having a true 9.
Yeah.
It's the opposite of a true 9.
But is it a false? Is a false? Yeah, exactly. So a real 9. So what do you think? Füllkrug to Qatar?
Sure. Over Nemeka? Sure. I'm fine with that. The historically, players like this have happened. The U.S. has had it. Herc Gomez and Edson Buttle were that for 2010.
In Germany, historically, that kind of thing does not happen. I can't think of.
The most famous one of that is probably Toto Scalacci from the Italia 1990.
In Italy, right, yeah.
Where he was like a sensation, and he scored. There was a leading scorer of the tournament, and I believe he only played that summer tournament. He didn't play. He never played for Italy before. He very rarely played for them before or after. Just like taste of the summer.
I would have to look this up to say this for sure, but I bet the number of German national team players who made their debut on the national team in a World Cup is
slim,
probably zero.
Yeah,
right. I don't.
Or at least in the modern era, like maybe.
I mean, at least throughout my lifetime. Yeah, I'm sure that might have happened. Yeah, in the 50s or something. But I would have to look that up. But I'm pretty sure.
The other thing is that I agree with you. Germans have a system. They always go in the tournament kind of knowing what they're getting themselves into.
Who the people are, yeah. I mean, there's some question, but yeah.
And they like to hang out with their old timers, like Oliver Bierhoff, part of that 2002 squad, and Lothar Matthäus in the 2000 squad.
Yeah,
and
or Klose in 14 was squad. Also was only. Yeah, exactly.
And this time around, he was mostly
a decoy. He was mostly a decoy in 2014, but he still
destroyed. He broke Ronaldo's record. But and this time around, the old timer would probably be a Thomas Muller, maybe, right? He'd probably be sort of the old guy that bring it on, ish. Maybe it's a little unfair. Maybe he's not quite there yet. But what I will say is, the German national team, like breaking tradition is what got them their last World Cup. They changed up their playing style. They changed up their use. The German national team is ready to change, and they know they're in a weird flux right now, where they're in their hangover period after their great revolution and the great Reboot, the great that turned into the World Cup and the youth squad. They're in a little bit of a hangover period. Oliver Bierhoff himself, they built this giant center in Frankfurt, and they said despite all our efforts, everybody else is catching up and doing better, and we have to keep on our toes. So we have to change, and he's right. So sometimes you got to make choices that maybe are a little non-traditional to shake it up, and this would be a Niklas Füllkrug thing. For me, I'll tell you, if you leave Lucas Nemeka behind and you bring Füllkrug instead, I mean, how many people are going to lose sleep over that? Really? How many people are going to lose sleep over that?
I don't think so. Yeah, that probably would be fine. It is just, I mean, there's really just no more. That's it. There's no more window. I think there's that one little kind of friendly.
Germany plays Oman.
Oman, yeah. 16th. And so it's just
been announced by them.
It would just be it's interesting. We're gonna keep our eye on it. If he keeps scoring, I mean, they're comparing him in a kicker in a big story this week is comparing him with Klose and Rudi Völler, the other two Werder Bremen greats in their prime, and he scores at the same rate as they do, and so yeah, he should be in the discussion, I guess. It's just like I said, it seems sort of hard to imagine that he would come out of nowhere and make the squad, but yeah, they definitely could use somebody like him.
I say yay. Why not? Do you say yay or nay?
Yeah. I say yay. I mean, I think because that really seems like that is the thing that is missing. If they had a very central number 9, I think a lot of things would fall into place. This just goes against the way that the Germans like to do it. Do I believe it's going to happen? I don't know, but it's interesting.
You know what I would love? I would love if, in addition to Niklas Füllkrug, they also decided to take Hani Mukhtar to the World Cup. That'd be fun. That's
not going to happen. I feel confident that it's not going to happen.
No, of course not. But
do you want
3 extra slots? And I want the German national team to give those 3 extra slots to the German MLSers. Kai Wagner, Hani Mukhtar.
Kai Wagner, yeah.
And then who else? Tommy or Julian Gressel or one of the other ones. I don't remember.
Mm-hmm. We'll see.
That's something we should do next week. We should come up with a list of best Germans from worst to last playing in MLS right now. We should just list them.
That sounds good. Yeah, there's not that many. I mean, who's Hani Mukhtar's number 1. We have Rafa Chicos. Rafa Chicos is.
There's always more than I realized. Oh yeah, Rafa Chicos.
Fabian Herbers is probably a little over the hill. We have
Tommy over at Sporting KC, who actually painted part of their last tifo, which was a great tifo. It was a tifo. Tommy? Yeah, Sporting KC player named Tommy. Let me look him up for his last name.
But he's not. Is he German or is he? I don't know. He's German.
No, he's very German, baby. Damien Kreilach is not German. That I will admit. However, Tommy,
as much as you would like him to be,
Eric Tommy. He is from Ulm.
Oh, interesting.
He played for Augsburg, Kaiserslautern, Stuttgart, Fortuna Düsseldorf, and now is Sporting Kansas City.
I take
He's
it
very
back.
German. He painted. They had a tifo where he was half Terminator, and he helped paint it, which was very sweet of them.
Yeah, I mean, Alfredo Morales on NYCFC is German.
He's American
in every practical sense. He's not playing for the.
He's more Peruvian than American, I think. Even he's like German, Peruvian, American.
He's lived his entire life in Germany.
Berlin, I know. He's one of those German Americans who's like has an American passport, but he's culturally is very German, like David Wagner. They were listing on ESPN like coaches in the Bundesliga or something, and it was like Pellegrino, and then David Wagner and Jesse Marsch. And it's like, I guess David Wagner is American. He plays for the U.S. possession team, but the dude's pretty German. Yeah,
he counts.
He counts. He counts. They all count. He counts.
You want to talk about this Saudi Arabia fiasco for a couple minutes? I mean,
I thought we were done talking about this Saudi Arabia fiasco.
It's a long time ago now.
All I want to say is that it was a couple of pathetic games. I'd like to have seen Eric Palmer Brown. He is finding every excuse to bring Ricardo Pepi to the World Cup. And also, frustratingly enough, I think he's trying to create every excuse to bring Zach Steffen to the World Cup. Like, Bruce Arena after the game was privy to information on a sports radio interview. Said he's like he rumor has it, or he's heard that he still prefers Steph. And I think conventional wisdom, no, like Greg Berhalter is pretty hard-headed. So if Stefan is playing at Middlesbrough week in, week out, there's a good chance Stefan's going to play against Wales. And I'll tell you, that would that would piss me off. Because Turner is in great shape. And Turner's going to have probably maybe 6 to 7 games between now and the World Cup. He'll be in form. He'll be playing. So that's not really an excuse.
I would... I've been known to be a bit of a Greg Berhalter apologist here on this show, but I agree with you there. If he starts anybody other than Turner or Sean Johnson, if he starts Stefan, I think that is a mistake.
Yeah, I would agree. The other thing, it's frustrating that, I thought Josh Sargent had a sloppy 45 minutes. I thought Mark McKenzie looked extra sloppy in the back. All these replacements he's bringing instead of these, like Tim Ream and Jordan Pefok were the two big omissions. And then, sure, maybe John Brooks. John Brooks isn't really playing. I don't know. John Brooks' ship, I think, has sailed.
Is done, yeah.
But with that being said, you look at Aaron Long and Mark McKenzie and Walker Zimmerman, and you're like, these are our center backs?
It wasn't a good couple games for them.
Harry Kane and Raheem Sterling are supposed to run at these guys? It's like, damn.
I mean,
it's going to be a hot knife through butter, man.
It's, it definitely... I'm not as big a fan as you are, but it definitely left me a little worried. It's like this World Cup could just come at a bad time for the US in terms of injuries, etc. It's like there's still a lot of people who are questionable in terms of injury, in terms of durability, in terms of their form in the club. And this could just not be good timing for the US. It's a tough group. It's really a tough draw. And there is expectations are high, there's a wave of talent, but the midfield without Yunus Musa looked really, really thin. And
they kept saying we missed Tim Weah, Yunus Musa, and I forgot who the other one was. Oh, Jenny Robinson. Those were 3 omissions. People were saying those were 3 big omissions. It's like, yeah, I agree, but isn't that on Greg? Like, are you telling me that after this whole system and scouting and about all the work we've done, at the end of the day, it's these 3 foreigners that got U.S. passports that are like key to our success? You know what I mean?
Foreigners.
Maybe Tim Weah. It was a little harsh calling Tim Weah.
Making a distinction between.
You're right. I guess I don't want to. They are American. I don't want to start that.
Let's.
I don't want to start the argument. However,
take your own advice and judge people as individuals, not by their.
I'm not calling them to play their Americanness. I'm not saying that. However, those 3 players did not come from the American system, as it were, the youth system. Jerry Robinson is English. They naturalized him. Yunus Musa also spent a lot of his time in England, naturalized him. Timo Weah spent all his time in France, I think, wherever his dad played, George Weah. I think he was born in New York. Timo Weah is probably spent the most time in the States of those 3, but still, those 3 are not from the NYCFC Academy. Let's just put it that way.
Right. But I mean, none of that really matters. The point is that, the team has a lot of talent, but it's still pretty thin. They're still young and they're still thin.
Right.
And in a few spots, there's not a lot of good, and a lot of the kind of, and I think this is not on Greg. I think Greg has given lots of opportunities to other players to step up and claim I think Joe Scally had a pretty good.
He did.
When he came off the bench, I thought he was the one who took the opportunity and sort of made a case to be included in the squad in a way that a lot of other people didn't.
Yeah, Sam Vines did not. When this camp was over, to me, it clarified that Turner should be our goalkeeper. Joe Scally should be on the plane to Qatar. And that's about it. Thankfully, there's friendlies. When the World Cup happens, it'll be a totally different environment. It'll be a different ball game. But the reality is this team under Greg has had pretty good results, but their performances have always left something to be desired. Always. Very rarely do they have a game where, like, hell yeah, they're playing. Like, sometimes it's happened, but it's happened a handful of times. More times than not, it's usually a pretty disappointing display, and we're just confused. I'm just confused as to why they can't put 2 and 2 together. Sometimes they're defending a sloppy, and more times than not, they just have no variety in attack plan. It's just Christian Pulisic or Gio Reyna versus the world, and then that's it. They have no real variety when it comes to attacking. And also, they tend to play with little variety when it comes to anything. Like, I feel like if the first guy that hits a long ball will get cut from the team or something, so they don't do long balls. And it's just very...
We're gonna rag on the system again.
Greg is living and dying by it. All I know is what I've seen. And what I've seen is a team that isn't winning and not performing well. They got some results against CONCACAF opposition. But, Wales, England, and Iran ain't CONCACAF. So it could be 3 and out. I mean, it could very well be 3 and out.
It really puts into sharp focus that these games are so disproportionately important.
Right.
Like it's every 4 years, or in this case, it's been 8 years since they've
Eight
had
and a half years.
Since they've had 8.5 years since they've had World Cup games, and those 3 games will be the referendum on Greg, whether fair or unfair. That's definitely true. All of the Gold Cups and the qualifier victories and the beating Mexico however many times in a row. None of that will matter if this doesn't go well. And it's hard to. England have been struggling too. They got relegated from their Nations League group. So, but Wales and Iran, that's just going to be. They're going to have to find something there. And
our only solace is the other teams are underperforming as well.
I still feel like this team. I don't quite agree. Like people complain about the performance. It's what we were talking about at the beginning. Soccer's, there's always a lot of things go wrong. I don't know. I found them pretty entertaining and pretty, certainly from my time of somewhat dispassionately watching the U.S. team. I've never been super invested in it. This group has been more fun than they used to be historically, in my opinion. But we'll see. Yeah, these games are going to be big. We're not going to know what's what until this happens, and for better or worse, that's what's gonna. Then we're going to decide how this all has gone.
First, 2 things: A, kitty sighting, a little Nanette run down.
Oh yeah,
steps.
my cat,
the kitty cat, and B. This U.S. team is very young. Yeah, like they're on big clubs, but that's just marketing. None of them are being leaned on at their clubs. They're off the bench. They're rotation players. They're young players. Like like Messi Bichetti's on Juventus, sure, but he's not team captain. And Juventus is underperforming. It's not like they're winning season after season. Mm-hmm. Juventus were the Bayern München of Italy until Weston McKennie showed up. They stopped. I'm not going to blame it on him, obviously.
Right.
But these are young Americans. You can't lean on them super hard. Like they're not at the point yet where they are the kings of their clubs, and you can lean on them for titles. They're just not there yet. They're very young,
and they're not playing. And they're not playing. They have ambition in terms of their style beyond just being the underdogs, beyond defending hard and hoping for the best on a counter. They are trying to be a productive, progressive team, and that can really go wrong
that's the risk.
Yeah, and
it went quite wrong against, I think, Japan and Saudi Arabia was a perfect example of 2 teams that just were unimpressed by what they had to offer, and then gave them a game. So like. However, this team, what I was saying is, despite being young, this team has the quality to defeat Wales and Iran. It does. So if the team doesn't defeat Wales and Iran. That's on Greg. You know, I mean, sure, you can blame the players, but Greg was with them for 3.5 years. You set them up. It's on Greg. So,
It's on the system.
So.
It's going to be the system's fault.
It's on his selections. You know, if we're 3 and out, it's like, where was Pifak? Where was Reem? Why weren't they playing long balls? Why was Zach Stefanin? You know, decisions can be questioned.
I mean, I don't think that's fair necessarily. I think that's unfortunate, but I think that is the reality. Yeah, I mean, I don't agree that it should be that way. I think you have to.
At the end of the day,
I think he's done a lot of things well, in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, you're right. That's the reality of it. The World Cup's everything. The last eight and a half years, we've thought about nothing else than these 3 games, and how that goes is he's going to be held responsible. That's true, and we'll see. Yeah, good luck to him. Good luck to him. I wish him the best.
If a coach is handed a squad of a certain quality on paper, you know, and he doesn't fulfill, if they can't beat Wales and Iran, that failure is on the coach. I mean,
but he has. Well, okay.
It's at the end of the day.
I mean, but it's what you're saying, though. I agree with, in terms of, you know, this player pool is what it is. It's like there's a lot of talent. There's also a lot of youth, and there's a lot of, you know, and he has molded them into a winning group within the context of CONCACAF. You know, whether it's the Gold Cup or the you know, they have performed very well. Now, this is it's not one step up, it's like 4 steps up. It's in terms of pressure, in terms of exposure, in terms of probably quality of the opposition. I can't really claim. I hear good things about Iran. I can't claim to have any idea how good they are. I don't watch them play, but
they beat Uruguay over the weekend. They have former New York Red Bulls coach Carlos Queiroz as their coach.
Okay, yeah,
and they play a very defensive, counter-attacking, park the bus style play. That's what I've heard.
Yeah, and we'll see if they, you know, I don't know how they compare to Mexico, but they're at the, let's
compare them to Saudi Arabia. Did you feel watching USA Saudi Arabia the United States were ever going to score a goal?
It did not feel that way in that game.
And that's exactly what's going to be like for Iran if they play better. If they play better, then that's what the Iran game is going to be like. And it's like, well, if 1 point's all you're going to get out of Iran, what are you supposed to get from Wales and England? You know,
and it's not like the U.S. has never lost to Iran at a World Cup before.
No, they did. They lost 2-1. Brian McBride, the only player. It was 2-1. Brian McBride scoring the only goal. Yeah, it was part of France '98. Brian McBride scoring the only American goal of that entire tournament. And it was a very sloppy goal, I think, too. But anyway, so that's that. But it's just friendlies. I wish them the best. I hope they come with positive PMA, positive mental attitude. I hope they perform on the night. You know, England, Wales, and Iran aren't necessarily lighting up either. So it's the battle of the underperforming teams. See who underperforms.
It's gonna be wild. That like England USA game is gonna be the.
It's gonna be a lot of fun,
right? It's gonna be the biggest. It's gonna be the biggest soccer game this country has ever seen.
Probably. Setting up for that. It's on Black Friday. It's USA versus England. Yeah, it's the country with a newfound love for the sport.
There's not going to be
the country that invented the sport and the country that invented this country, by the way. So it's a double meaning there.
This is a pet peeve of mine for people to infuse these games. You know, this is already, stakes are already high enough. Then it's like people like to make World War II references or like geopolitical implications. It's not necessary. It's not necessary.
This is my tifo.
No world history is not being renegotiated at this tournament. It's just soccer.
This is my tifo. It's the American players throwing a bunch of tea in the river or whatever. That's what it is. And the tea's got like the English national team logo on it. That's my tifo, baby. We don't need your tea. We drink coffee around here. And I say that as a man who is very German and has no historical connections to anything between Britain or the United States.
You're on a America First tear tonight.
I resent that. I'm not an American person. I think you can playfully have fun, but there's a line. There are lines. As a comedian, I know the line. I think that's fun. But to be like, you were our slaves, that's crossing the line. I don't want to see that.
No.
Like during the USA-Iran game, I don't want a tifo with pictures of the 1970s Iran hostage crisis. No. I don't want to see that.
No. Okay. Good. All right.
That's
we're on the same page. We agree. Okay. Yeah. I mean, the New York Times specialized in this, even when the German team was really quite. Even in the mid 2000s when we had Özil and quite creative players, they were still kind of using World War II references to describe the German.
Right. It's lazy journalism.
Defensive,
German
their defensive stalwart. Yeah, the German defensive, tank-like defense, whatever. This fucking do better. Do better.
No one gives Germans enough credit in general. I'll say in soccer, like always in the history of the game, German players are never listed as any of the best players ever. It's just like they won a mass amounts of titles. The German mentality is about teamwork. This is a team sport, dude.
Yeah, and
they play a team sports. So,
and the exceptions to that rule are always put under extra scrutiny. Like Mesut Özil's body language. Like, what is this?
Yeah, or Thomas Müller.
Yeah,
this whole generation. Everyone's talking about Leo Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo and Karim Benzema and Robert Lewandowski. They will come up with loads and loads of players before anyone will mention Thomas Müller as maybe also being a world-class player. It's like Thomas Müller has like 100 titles under his belt, including a World Cup. It's like the dude scores 1 billion goals. The dude can move the space the way you've never seen before. Like Thomas Müller is a typical example of a German who doesn't get his just desserts. I don't know. I'm on so many soapboxes tonight.
I'm just.
Well, don't you agree?
I'm just taking it all in.
No, and whenever World Cups show up, German players are never mentioned. It's always, how will Cristiano Ronaldo do? How will Messi do? How will X do? How will Y? How is it? It's like, how will all 11 Germans do? How about that question? I've got 11 Germans ready to go. How will they do?
Well, we talked about this. We talked about this last week, where Stu Holden was ready once we had a lead against England. Was ready to anoint us World Cup favorites. We'll see. Yeah.
What's Harry Kane up to?
Füllkrug will fix it.
Füllkrug will fix it, my friend. Okay, it's already over an hour.
I know, we haven't even talked about MLS playoffs. So much happening.
So much happening.
And the teams that are making the playoffs are interesting to talk about, but so are the teams that are not making the playoffs. And I would go ahead. Go ahead. First and foremost, what is first and foremost?
Let's congratulate LAFC for officially
winning the Supporters Shield with a little assist from Charlotte FC.
Philadelphia Union were looking like they were going to snap it up there at the end. Some people thought Philly Union deserved a little more. If they didn't just win, they destroyed. But the reality is the points total is in the favor of great German-American mayor of Hanover, Steve Cherundolo's side, LAFC. And congratulates on LAFC for winning the Supporters Shield.
And we know this. We know this for sure because of this lovable quirk of MLS, where the first tiebreaker, and maybe not everybody knows this of our listeners, the first tiebreaker is not goal differential. The first tiebreaker is wins.
Yeah,
and
which is
so
smart, I think, right?
because Philadelphia has the better goal differential, and they're 3 points behind LAFC, so they could catch up in points, but they cannot catch up in wins because LAFC has 21 and Philadelphia has 18. So that's why LAFC is already the Supporters Shield winner.
MLS will do whatever it takes for New York or LA to do well. That's all I'll say. That's all I will say.
MLS will do. Oh my God! What is this now?
Another conspiracy
so they're
theory.
So by years ago setting up this tiebreaker, that was preemptively designed to give LA an advantage in this Supporters Shield race.
It was designed
now many years later.
It was designed to give Miami a disadvantage and designed to give LAFC an advantage. Okay, so LAFC won Supporters Shield. They did it because Charlotte FC destroyed Philadelphia Union.
With former NYCFC assistant coach Christian Latanzio at the helm.
But more importantly, Rios. What's his name? Diego Rios?
Yeah, Rios scored four. Scored a hat trick plus one.
Hat trick plus one. He scored all 4 goals, and that came out of nowhere, right? Because where'd that come from? Good on you, Charlotte. And we should also admit a little bit of an apology to Charlotte FC. I think everyone owes Charlotte FC a little bit of an apology. They started off very rocky. But it was not a dumpster fire season. It was a good season. Swardowski, what's his name? What's the guy up top?
Karol Swardowski, yeah.
Swardowski he came from nowhere. Christian Fuß.
Yeah.
Like
it seemed like a very sort of Eurocentrically focused roster building strategy, which historically has not gone very well. Right. So I definitely thought that they would have a hard time. But they did well, and and I've said this before, I was wrong about them, and they are still very much in the. Well, it's more than mathematically, because they're playing each other, right? Like they're 4 points behind Columbus, but they play Columbus. So if they beat Columbus, then they're only 1 point behind Columbus. So
but hold on,
and Columbus
what if Orlando and Miami get points? And so at the end of the day,
I mean, there's definitely, they're definitely.
They're very much on the outside.
They're 4 points. They're 4 points behind with two games to go. So yes, that's true. But because
they would need
teams,
to win both, and the other teams need to lose both for them to get in the
but that's what I'm saying, because Orlando's still playing Miami. Orlando's still playing Columbus. Like some of these teams are going to draw points. So if Charlotte wins these last 2, there's a decent chance that they might get it.
I would love to see them in the playoffs. They've got a great fan base. They've showed out, and again, I love it when American audiences come out to see soccer. And I hate to see it happen so early, because historically, franchise teams do poorly. So a lot of fans will come out and see their teams underperforming and then stop showing up. And it's like, it's nice for a team with support, like what happened with Atlanta. Yeah. It's nice for a team with support to show up and the team does well. Mm-hmm. And then maybe they'll stick around. I don't know. Maybe they'll be a little more invested, and hope so. So that's why I would root for Charlotte making their way into the playoffs.
Yeah, and if we're looking at the East and the teams that they're ahead of, New England officially eliminated. Bruce Arena went from Supporters Shield record breaking to missing the playoffs. Atlanta out of the playoffs. Chicago out of the playoffs. Toronto with their fancy Italians,
highest paid,
big money, big payroll. We kept waiting for them to get it together, and they did not. Is this what do you think? Is there something, both Bruce Arena and Bob Bradley, the kind of old school,
the 2 best old school American managers? The old generation.
What do you think? What does the future hold for them?
The future holds for them is they are going to have great seasons next year. Mm-hmm. They are just waiting. It was rebuilding years. They knew this was going to happen. They're getting ready for 2024. Or excuse me, 2023. What's next year? 2023.
They're just gonna skip a season and then really come back strong, fully rested.
Toronto FC had 10 players in, 10 players out over the summer. It's a total rebuild at Toronto FC. This is definitely.
But I mean, they're averaging a point a game. It's still disappointing. No.
Yeah, it is very disappointing. You think we've seen before. One player has come to a team and just turned their fortunes around. Jermaine Jones, the great German-American Germany Jones, came in and did that to New England and then did that to Colorado. He just would show up to a club, and that club would just all of a sudden be twice as good. He was a magician that way. And I think people don't give him enough credit. So you see Bernardeschi and Insigne showing up, yeah, you'd assume that would have been some sort of a bounce, but no, it wasn't, I guess.
And you trust Bob Bradley to figure this out.
And Bob, we trust.
Because Alejandro Pozuelo, he went from MVP
to Miami
of the league to shunned, and he went to Miami, and he said he went from one of the worst locker room experiences of his life to a great situation in Miami.
Very surprising to hear because you'd imagine it's the other way around. But that's also maybe with a little bit of a grain of salt. Yeah, but whatever's going to happen up there, Bob will figure it out. Or he won't. Maybe the locker room is so toxic that he'll never figure it out. But I have faith in Bob. And same with Bruce. They got rid of Matt Turner. They got rid of Josie Altidore. I mean, they sold what else? I mean,
Adam Buxa, and their DP their DP replacement was hurt for a lot of the year. Yeah.
Sebastian Lletget came in for a couple weeks, and it was New England, same thing. A lot of rebuild, a lot of figuring stuff out. But again, they will be ready to go for next year. Toronto and New England are going to show up to the party next year. That's because it's Bruce and Spot. They know this league. They get exactly how this league. They're like the quintessential MLS managers. They have no problem turning a season off because they know there's no relegation. But Bob Bradley is famous because once upon a time, MLS had this rule where there was a 3 substitutions plus 1. And what the plus 1 was if your goalkeeper is injured, you're allowed to have an extra substitution just for your goalkeeper. Those were MLS rules only, non-FIFA rules. Because MLS used to do crap like that all the time. So Bob Bradley, during a MetroStars game, put a field player in as goalkeeper during the last 10 minutes of a game, using that extra plus 1 sub, which was well in his rights to do. And he had 11 field players on the field run up, and he scored the last goal, and they won. And then the league got rid of that rule. Because Bob Bradley is, he's an
innovator.
Coach. He's an American coach. He's like, oh, there's no relegation? Perfect.
Let's go.
Screw this season. I don't care. Why would I have to get 3 extra points by the end of the year if it means not, if it means nothing? You know what I mean? Like, they get the league, they get the rules. They're playing the long game, those two guys.
I don't know. I think Bob Bradley's race might be run. I don't know. We'll see.
Hey, man, trust in Bob. Okay. Bob, we trust. 2019 Supporter Shield winner Bob Bradley. Who asked those questions? But anyway, so the
playoff picture, just to sum it up, the playoff picture in the East, Montreal now could still win the East. They're only 2 points behind Philly now.
Right.
This team from, what are they called? New York City Football Club. Yeah, we're in third place. Look at that.
Place. We would have been third place if we didn't have a very Metro game against Columbus.
If the ref had blown the whistle in the 88th minute, you would have been third. We would have
been in third place. So for those of you at home that don't know what Metro is, being a New York Red Bulls fan, or a Metros fan, as some people will call it, is very much us shooting ourselves in the foot. The amount of games we've lost against former players that we have gotten rid of for no good reason is insurmountable. It's just like it's innumerable. Maybe is the more appropriate term. I think I used the wrong term. Yeah, so we're playing against former New York Red Bull Derek Etienne, son of New Jersey himself.
Oh yeah, that's right. Not just anyone.
So we go to Columbus. We score 1-0. Caleb Porter's bitching and complaining about dumb stuff that he's always complaining about. The guy won't stop complaining. And then in the last 2 minutes, Derek Etienne scores not 1, but 2 goals to flip it from a 1-0 win to a 2-1 loss. And Columbus Crew
did not celebrate. Did not
celebrate because he's a good old Metro boy.
Respectful.
And the New York Red Bulls dropped 3 points, and Columbus got 3 very important points. I think if Columbus lost,
be hard for them. Be difficult.
I think Miami or Orlando, someone would have clinched the playoffs or something. I don't know. All I know is Columbus got their points against New York. It's not that big of a deal. We're 4th as opposed to 3rd. Who cares? We'll take 3rd or 4th. I I mean, what is it?
What do you mean? It doesn't matter that we're now ahead of you? That doesn't matter to you?
Yes, because you know what's funny about the New York Red Bulls this year, which is also That's So Metro, is between home games and road games, the New York Red Bulls tend to excel on the road.
Or better on the road, yeah.
As opposed to the home. So if you're telling me, oh, shucks, now they have to start on the road, I say, okay.
Well, you
better
could
on
get,
the road anyway.
You could get your wish because there's a couple of teams that could still catch you, depending on how all these results of teams playing each other. The Orlando, Miami, Columbus, Charlotte. That's all. Those standings could all shake up. But if one of those teams can win both games, you may just find yourself in 5th.
New York needs. No. New York is clinched 4th. How would anyone
I don't
get 5th?
think so.
Oh no, you're right. Orlando, Miami, and Columbus all could technically get 51 points.
And you're playing Charlotte. You're playing Charlotte in the last game, and
so
they're going to be
Charlotte.
They're going to be motivated. Yeah.
Oh, so are we. Then whatever. We'll get 5th. Who plays who? Is it 2nd versus 7th, 3rd versus 6th?
Yeah. Right. I mean, so, is the
so our what is it? And the top 3 are home and the bottom 3 are away, right? So if we have right now, we would have a home game versus Cincinnati.
Yeah,
I mean that's a tricky game since he's great.
Except those bottom 3 are still subject to shuffling.
I mean, as of right now, this is what would happen.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if we're 5th. So what would happen? Cincy would get 4th and we get 5th. The only thing would change is we go to Cincy instead. I would rather do that. I'd rather go to Cincy.
You'd rather play in Cincinnati than at home?
Yeah.
All right. Well,
I mean,
you may get your wish.
Next week almost means nothing to me. Like we'll get a point, we'll lose, we'll win. Who cares? It's the week after that I care about.
What's going to be interesting is that mini tournament between those 5 teams in 3 spots, and then we'll see how it all shakes out. NYCFC had a very nice game against Orlando, a comeback victory after falling behind through a stupid goal, where Sean Johnson was kind of stuck to his line, where he could have come out and prevented somebody on the short post flipping a throw in. Anyway, Sean Johnson, who I love, our captain, wonderful player, great
voice,
but great guy all around, just a fantastic player. He had a chance though to make a case for himself in this whole goalie shuffle in the U.S. men's national team, and he has not done that. He has been okay, but he had an opportunity to really make it a hard decision for Greg Berhalter, and he has not done that. Anyway, I was rooting for him. But that's my take on him. But anyway, then we came from behind to win 2-1, and really the hero of the night was Thales Magno, who's been another one of those false nines, because he's not a 9. He's like a 9, like Timo Werner is a 9. He's like a 9 that likes to hang out on the wing, and
lowercase 9.
And he has, he's still very young and learning the ropes, and he has frustrated at times. I mean, he's been really very good this season, I will say. He's got 8 assists before this game. He now has 9. And for a young player, he's been great, but he's, at times been a little bit tentative in front of goal in a way that Tati Castellanos clearly was not. He would fight for every ball. But in this game, Thales had a great, even more so than the decisive goal. That was great. But even the first goal, he had an assist that was uncharacteristic in him really fighting for the ball in the box, getting it to Alex Collins, who's on a scoring tear for a center back. And we won the game 2-1, and now we have clinched a home game. The good news is we've clinched a home game. The not so great news is our home game is going to be at your
New
home.
Jersey, baby, Red Bull Arena.
Most
you play.
likely.
So what is that, by the way? You guys are playing like all your home games, Red Bull Arena. What's going on? Is it just what's going on?
What's going on?
It didn't be that.
You want me to explain it?
I just don't understand.
We don't have our own stadium.
But
we played it. We had a playoff game in Red Bull Arena before, and we have.
It seems though that this year the Yankee Stadium has been more unavailable than usual.
Well, because it's earlier, because the playoffs are earlier than usually. Because of the World Cup, everything is sooner, and now it very much squarely collides with the playoff, with the MLB playoffs, and the Mets are also good, which that doesn't always happen. You could often count on them. Historically, you could count on the Mets not being in the playoffs many a year, and therefore their stadium being available. But that's not the case. And so it used to be.
There are 5 more baseball stadiums in the boroughs to pick from. You don't need to play at Yankee Stadium. There's MCU Park at Coney Island. They used to play the New York Cosmos. There's the Staten Island Yankee Stadium down in Staten Island. That's a fun little stadium.
None of those are. I don't think those are too small. Like I don't think they're. I mean, you just want to torture me. Okay, no, it's fair. It is very.
Stadiums in the world.
It's a sad situation. It continues to be a sad situation.
Boston, play at Fenway.
It used to be in a usual year where there's no World Cup at a weird time. The playoffs start like mid to late October, so you really just have to wait out like one.
Right.
That was only a problem if the Yankees went really far in the playoffs. But this year, it's just it's unavoidable. They're on a complete collision course schedule wise, and so it's probably going to be Red Bull Arena, which I don't mind it as much as other fans. Well, and actually, on Sunday we had a pretty good crowd there because some of these.
I disagree. What was
comparatively, I mean, it's been. Listen, we have had some games out.
Why are people not going a game? Like
the fan base. Large parts of the fan base have decided that they're not into it. They don't want to play at that stadium. They are not gonna. They're not gonna go out there. And I think, I think it's
that.
I think
it's
almost
as if the only developer. It's almost as if the only real estate in the New York City area that's close to New York and developable is New Jersey. How about that? What a weird conclusion to come up with this late in the game. Anyway, we're an hour and 22 in, and we still haven't even touched on the West yet. So
let's make it quick. In the West,
Seattle Sounders.
Seattle Sounders. Yeah. Also officially out. It was coming.
First time in their club history. So good on them for having such a great run. They were a good example of a great expansion team that came in and started winning right away and made the playoffs their first year. And they were a great football team and a soccer team, the foosball team. And it's like, good on them. They had a great season, and then they knocked out NYCFC to go win the CONCACAF Champions League, which is the first MLS club to do that. And they had quite the hangover effect after that.
Yeah,
Nico
really
Ladero came out and said something very vague and generic, which was sold
mistakes were made.
He said mistakes were made on the players
on
level,
every level,
coaches level, and like management level. It's like what he said.
Yeah.
Which is like,
all right.
no shit.
Shit, Sherlock.
You can say that about the MLS winning team.
Fire everyone.
No one's. And then they asked Brian Schmetzer. Brian Schmetzer's like, yeah, I agree. Everything you said was right. I agree. That's typical Seattle from the librarian himself, from high school teacher Brian Schmetzer.
Wow. The shade.
I love Brian Schmetzer, real German American.
I do too.
German American Schmetzer. And Seattle's a great team, and I hope they get their act together and figure out what's going on for next year. But it's a shame they have all these great.
But I think, and I think
the Sounders had great games against Portland and the Galaxy in their past, and this year we will not see that. This year there will be no Galaxy Sounders game, and there will be no Portland Sounders game either, and it's a shame.
I think this is also a good opportunity, briefly, to after you just ragged on us for our stadium situation, which is admittedly frustrating. But other than that, this is our 7th year in a row we're making the playoffs. And there's all these other teams that have had rebuilding years, and we lost our coach and our and our star player in the middle of the year. We could have had a hangover. There's a lot of stuff that could have crumbled, and so good on us. We're finishing third or fourth, and we're still in it.
Yeah, I mean, if you do this 6 more seasons in a row, you'll have matched what the New York Red Bulls have matched already. So well done.
That's right. So
the New York Red Bulls are entering in their 13th, I believe, postseason in a row. I don't think any other MLS club matches that. And for a New York Red Bulls fan, getting the playoffs is an expectation, which is why it's so funny being here in LA, going to Galaxy games. And the Galaxy is historically like the Man United of MLS. They're always up front, spending money, loud splash, blah, blah. They missed the playoffs the last 2 years in a row, maybe even 3 years if memory serves. And I believe they just about clinched the playoff spot. They did. A very boring 1-1 tie against Real Salt Lake where they missed a penalty. Mr. Ricky Pugh missed a penalty, and then thankfully was it Kevin Cabral, scored a penalty later in the game. It was a penalty, 2 penalties. They had no goals again. And they just clinched themselves in the playoff. But the Galaxy, I think, play a very slow and boring type of soccer. It seems like they're just kind of on the counter, but they're a little slow. And unless it's a cutting pass from Ricky Pugh,
Kevin Cabral can't get a shot off even to
and Joveljic can't get off the bench. Joveljic, who's scoring great, can't get his butt off the bench. Mm-hmm. So Galaxy, I'm glad they're doing marginally better than they were last year. Chicharito just extended his contract, and
they might get a home game. They're in fourth right now.
Oh yeah, well we'll see. I think there's are they in fourth really? Home game? Thought they were they're in fourth. They're at 47 points.
Well, everybody else lost. Portland. It was a weird weekend in the West. All the contenders lost except
Nashville had a really sloppy defense. I wonder who's backing up that defense. Hopefully, he doesn't play for the U.S. team against Wales or England. But anyway, and then we have Portland, Minnesota, Real Salt Lake, and Vancouver vying for those last 2 spots.
Yeah, 2 spots. These teams don't have games in hand, so this is all going to be decision day. Whereas in the East, there's a few midweek games that have huge playoff implications.
I'm rooting for Vancouver because if I'm not mistaken, they're the opposite of Seattle. I think they've never been in the playoffs, right? Or something.
Vancouver has never been in the playoffs? No, that can't be true.
Someone tell me that. Well, either way, Vancouver needs help. Maybe I'm wrong. But Vancouver. Well, name a Vancouver playoff game.
I'm going to look it up right now. Keep talking.
Okay. Vancouver Whitecaps have Brian White, one of many, many, many great New York Red Bulls Academy kids that we have unceremoniously gotten rid of early and not used for them to use their full potential in their prime at different clubs, like Brian White crushed it for Vancouver last year. Vancouver Whitecaps have a German sport director. I forgot his name. That's why I got Julian Gressel in. And with Julian Gressel's alarming trade and mistreatment, I would love for Julian Gressel and Vancouver to make their way to the playoffs and to see DC United just crash and burn their way down with their Wayne Rooney. So I would be really rooting for Vancouver just because, Vancouver seems to be a great fan base and a good club, but can never get success going. And I would love to. I just like to support fan bases that show up for their teams. I really do. So
they have been in the playoffs before.
How many times? Once? Like 20 years ago?
No, more than once.
Well, either way, Vancouver are perennial underachievers. I think Vancouver won the Canadian Championship this year, or if not this year, recently. So that's been fun for them. All I know is that Vancouver, I'm rooting for you.
Best of luck.
Best of luck. Portland, you're always a fun team. I'd love to see you in the playoffs. You're a good. Portland's like a playoff team. They're always ready to go come playoff time. So I think Portland's going to pull it off. And I think Minnesota. And if I had it my way,
Minnesota is kind of in free fall. They have not. I think they've won 1 out of their last 8. Maybe. I think they are struggling. So they may just drop out. They may just drop out of that final playoff spot. We'll see.
Yeah. All right. Next week is the next
decision day. Decision day
we'll have done. We'll see if Vancouver made it. We'll see what else. We'll see if maybe Charlotte pulled off a miracle. Maybe
we'll have all the matchups. We'll preview all the playoff matchups. It'll be good.
Maybe Gerardo Zaoni will be fired by then. We're on Gerardo Zaoni watch.
That could very much be the case.
May very much be the case. All right. Maybe Nicholas Füllkrug has another hat trick to his name. We'll see. We're on a lot of watch. We're on a lot of watches here. Okay. And this is the Schnitzel Boys.
Take Meister Stefan signing off.
NYC Bjorn signing off. Tschüss. Bis nächste Woche.